Until quite recently, there wasn't a whole lot of conversation about the human side of being a police officer. And after all, these are connections between you and citizenry. And so when we see a situation like George Floyd, with an officer kneeling on someone's neck and other officers standing around watching that, what I've always said is that that's not a failure of policing, that's a failure of humanity. And so you can't fix a failure of humanity by teaching policies and procedures more effectively or giving them more policies and procedures. What you really have to do is to begin to help people to continue to connect around the human aspect of that work. And so that's what we try to do in HTLE, is get officers to think about what it means to engage another human being as you're doing your job, to do that with equity and fairness and respect for the individual. The project is called Humanities Training for Law Enforcement. HTLE is about using the methods of the humanities to frame conversations and to initiate conversations with cadets about how to bring more equity into their policing practices. The novels that we've chosen have a Black detective, sometimes an officer, more often a former law enforcement officer who has left the force and is now doing private detective work. And so the detective became the place where we could start the cadets on a conversation about, okay, so what is this detective doing that might be a model for how you could police? And so these became very important kind of touchstone moments for us to say, you know, what is it that's building legitimacy with this character? And what is it that's working against it? Because often you're seeing the police force doing something very different. And so we were able to kind of talk about those differences and use those as moments to think about what else is possible in policing. In our society, we're not taught to think or talk about race at all, right? So when you notice it or when you say something about it, very often it's sort of seen as the impolite thing or the thing that would mark you as being a problem. So for those cadets to now be at a place where they're able to understand the significance of thinking about that, even when it's uncomfortable, I think is a real marker of something important happening that can move us forward.